All right, guys. Well, good morning. I'm Tiara Bonds and a new organizer with 1 Million Cups. Thank you guys for all being here. We do this every Wednesday at 9 a.m. And this is where you can keep in touch with us. Our link tree, it'll have every link that you could possibly need for 1 Million Cups, the Zoom link. If you wanted to apply to present, all of that is there. And we have it in the chat, I believe. So what is 1 Million Cups? So we are all about support, building our community, asking questions, asking for help, offering help, and kind of just sharing ideas while we drink coffee. Okay. Oops, going the wrong way. All right, so what kind of sets us apart? I'm sure you guys as entrepreneurs, we've been to many different groups and different communities. Some of the things that set us apart here with 1 Million Cups is that we are all about presentations. I love a good pitch, but 1 Million Cups is all about presentations. We're not pitching to people. We're connecting and not networking. So it's not where you go to one of those traditional networking events where everyone's just sharing business cards and not really connecting. Here at 1 Million Cups, we highlight connection. So this is for the community, ran by the community, a group of us volunteers, and then we're radically and intentionally inclusive. So this is our Seattle community, but there's over 130 other communities with over 3,500 attendees, 700 plus volunteers. Again, we meet every Wednesday at 9 a.m. But if you want to experience a community in Pensacola, where Tess is going, you can do that. We all meet at 9 a.m. So it would be 6 a.m. our time. And then, so to sum it up, 1 Million Cups, we're all about, we focus on these 3 pillars: presentations, connections, and education. So more than 8,000 people, entrepreneurs, have shared their business idea or their business story at 1MC. I was fortunate to be one of those entrepreneurs, and it was one of the best places I've received feedback when doing a pivot and a new offering for my business. So super, super great resource. And then a special thanks to all of our community sponsors, the McLaughlin method customization, and Human Up. We wouldn't be able to do this without our sponsors, as well as without our volunteers. So, so we all bring something different to the community, and together we're able to put on these events every single week and, you know, bring in the feedback from you guys as the community. We're always looking for more community volunteers, so reach out to us. If that's one of you, it's a great way to practice different skills that you can or may use in the future in your business, like hosting an event. So what you can expect today. So we already did a little bit of coffee and conversation. We're gonna go into a 6-minute presentation by 2 entrepreneurs today. And then we will do a 20-minute Q&A and then more breakout rooms for smaller connections with more coffee. And so a little bit of tips on how to be a supportive listener. What helps me is taking notes throughout the presentation because I have a very scattered brain. So I'll just write them down so that I can save them to the end. And then some more tips to just think about, you know, what stands out to you? What do you want to learn more about? Maybe where could your expertise be of value to the presenter? And also limit distractions so that we can focus and give our energy to our presenter. When we get to the Q&A, we'll use the raise hand button down at the bottom of your screen, or you can type your questions in the chat. But with that, I will bring up our entrepreneur, Marita and Eric with Relumed. And I will stop sharing so that you can share, Marita.
Wonderful. Well, thank you all for being here today and being taking some time out of your week. I'm going to get my shared screen ready. All right. Well, my name is Marita Herkert-Oakland, and I'm a co-founder of Relumed, which is a training and facilitation agency dedicated to moving visual thinking up the decision-making ladder in business. I'm here with my co-founder, Eric, and he's going to be joining us during the Q&A time today. In the last decade or more, we've seen the emergence of thought leaders like Simon Sinek, Brené Brown, and Adam Grant, teaching us how to build people-first, purpose-driven organizations full of visionary growth and innovation. And many entrepreneurs and leaders that we work with understand these philosophies, but new ways of doing business require new skills. One skill that can bridge the gap between the way that we work now and the way that we want to work is visual thinking, or the use of drawing to capture, process, or communicate information and ideas quickly, often in real time. So rather than starting with tools like the business model canvas or OKRs for vision and strategy conversations, visual thinking shifts the way that people sort through information so they're able to make better decisions faster. Relumed is a service agency that brings visual thinking to businesses in two ways. We can train leaders and teams to use visual thinking in their work, or they can have it tomorrow through facilitated conversations. We work with visuals because studies show that 80% of what we learn is visual, and you're 3 times more likely to remember something you've seen than something you've only heard or read. So like Tiara said, get out your pen and paper, start drawing out some notes. Now, in order to move visual thinking up the decision-making ladder in business, we teach visual thinking skills through live training and online courses. Our first training that we've developed is on leading with visual thinking. And our first course that we just recently finished up is on the fundamentals of visual thinking for professionals. And that's just the first of many that we're planning over the next several years. Now, we use a framework that we created to bring these skills into organizations, which focus as much on filtering and processing information as it does on the drawing skills that you might expect by the name visual thinking. And we invite learners to identify how they want to use these skills and then determine what paths and what things that they need in order to get there. Now, the 4 areas that we explore in our courses and trainings are visual skills, which are often the drawing skills that you might expect. But then we do using frameworks and filtering techniques so you can maybe have better meetings. We teach collaboration and holding space for everyone involved in a conversation and doing that through visual thinking. And we teach how to make the most of tools like whiteboards and online platforms, which there are so many of these days. The other main service that we offer is visual facilitation, which is facilitated conversations supported by live drawing, which you'll experience at the end of our conversation today. And that brings experienced facilitators into organizations to explore vision, strategy, process, and innovation conversations, those big picture conversations for businesses. Now, our visual thinking services have a broad target market, and the facilitation and training services have some overlap, but also some significant differences. All of our clients are curious, people-focused organizations looking for ways to improve communication in creative and new and innovative ways. Our facilitation clients are generally looking for more expert support and guidance. And our training and course clients are usually leaders or individual contributors looking for new skills to improve their work. Their jobs can vary widely, from founder and CEO to UX designer, HR director, product manager, or consultant. Now, I co-founded Relumed with my partner in life and in business, Eric Oakland. Eric is the creative mind behind 2 other companies where he developed his visual thinking methodologies, and he's ready to teach others now in this venture. And I bring my background in social work to facilitate systems-level, curious, compassionate conversations with leaders. We are building Relumed because we understand the power of visuals, and we have the skills to teach leaders ways to effectively bring them into their organization. We're developing partnerships with other facilitators and creatives to begin to scale our training and facilitation services. And we are a creative, experienced, and formidable team. But why is visual thinking needed now? Well, in a recent study from Predictive Index, 96% of CEOs indicated that they shifted the strategic direction of their company in 2020. I'm guessing you have an idea of why, but the uncertainty, the upheaval, and the need to pivot throughout the pandemic while still needing to build strong, focused teams have made this a time of great opportunity and great challenge for leaders. But the tools, support, and skills that we provide can help organizations through times like this and beyond. Also, everything we offer can be done virtually. Our facilitated sessions and live trainings are all done via Zoom and create a new kind of virtual experience. And our courses are all available online as well. Now, we aren't the first to bring visuals to business. There's actually a global community of visual thinkers who offer regular trainings and courses to similar audiences. And Relumed overlaps with the e-learning, consulting, and facilitation industries, where there's established trends of business investment. But our approach to teaching and modeling visual thinking is unique among the small group who's already doing this. Rather than training people to become professional visual thinkers, which is actually a thing, we focus on building skills in an organization so that anyone can lead with visual thinking. We're in year 1 of Relumed, but in 5 years, we envision a world where visual thinking is a skill that leaders use to lead with why, to practice vulnerability, to rethink their assumptions, and that the Relumed frameworks are used to inform common business tools like OKRs or the business model canvas. So I'd love to have some conversation today around 2 things. Number 1, we've decided to focus our scaling and our marketing on the training side, our courses and our live trainings. But that requires launching a course, developing a pipeline for these trainings. So what should we consider as we pursue this? And number 2, one thing that we often hear is how you need to see this to understand it. So what types of content would you like to see in order to better understand visual thinking training and facilitation? Thank you so much for your time, and I'm looking forward to our conversation.
Wow, that was amazing. I've been waiting for this presentation since we spoke a couple months ago. So that was amazing. And congrats on year 1.
Yeah, it's a thing.
Yeah, so I will start the Q&A with Katie.
Great. So I'm going to have Eric pull up the whiteboard and do some live drawing similar to how our visual facilitation works during this conversation. So you go, and if we want to take that off at some point, that's totally fine, but you can see how this works in real time. So Katie, what's up?
Cool. Well, so I definitely want to connect offline later because there's actually a lot of synergy between some of the things you're doing and the things in my business. And so I have a million questions. But my big question goes back to probably the core of some of your questions, like behind your questions are, how do people know that what they need is visual thinking? Like, how are you finding that? Because that's something that I find as a challenge in my service-based business as well. And so I'm curious, like, what is that journey looking like for you guys?
Yeah. Great question. And that is the tricky part, especially when you're using something kind of jargony like visual thinking. It's not a normal term. It's not like, I need accounting. So absolutely. Usually when we're having conversations, it's not that people know they need visual thinking. It's that they know they're stuck. They know that they're not having great communication. They're not able to get their team aligned. They have so much swirling in their head. And as we start talking about the potential benefits of using visuals and drawing things out, and this kind of lines up with mind mapping, or how do you get that swirl onto paper? Then that clicks. That's when it starts to really make sense. So yeah, it's not necessarily, nobody's calling and saying, I've been, waiting for these visual thinking skills. It's, I know that I need to make this change with my team, with my business, with my work. And this is something that really resonates because I am a creative person, or I am someone who really needs to see things visually, whatever that might be.
Nice. Eric.
Thank you.
Oh, other Eric.
Oh, sorry.
This Eric. So very interesting. I'm glad you said mind mapping, because that's what I was going to bring up. Was this reminds me of mind mapping, but not with one of the canned programs. It's the more organic, the initial version of mind mapping that you would see. And I use this in education quite a bit when I was teaching. And I did have a barrier to getting my students to actually try this. So I know this has got to be tough when you get, I mean, students are sometimes able to, especially when it's given to them as something they need to do. But how do you handle it with adults that think of this as almost, I don't know, childlike to try to draw something out? It's like, do they feel like they're in third grade? How do you get beyond that?
Eric Oakland, I want you to respond first, and then I'll piggyback on that.
Yeah, and I apologize that my camera is not visible at the moment as I share the board. Yes, you're absolutely right that there is a systemic stunting of our kind of visual skills through elementary school, to the point where often the first, when presented with the idea or even getting on a whiteboard, other people respond with, I can't draw. It's a preemptive kind of reflex of that kind of lost skill or anxious about getting up on a board and being in front of people or showing those sorts of things. And so a lot of what we do is when we're talking with people, it's connecting with what is familiar, how they journal or doodle in their notebooks when they're, in meetings, et cetera, and showing them how those skills can directly link to problem solving, learning, communicating ideas more clearly to other people, and the benefits of offloading or externalizing information. So sometimes it's trying to get away from the focus of the visual part of it and focus in on what the benefits are, how it how it can apply, and some of that is I start training people to do it for themselves, as opposed to in a performative way or in a public way, if that makes sense.
I like that. That's great. I think what you just said was the key. So yeah, do it for yourself instead of as a performance for others. And then you see the benefit and you can pass it along. I love that. So I'll use that when as I train students to do this. Thank you.
Awesome.
Awesome. Thanks, Eric. And Eric, Jolene?
So I was trying to pull my husband in because he actually was telling me yesterday that I needed to draw it out. But he is very much an artist, and like that comes very naturally. And so I love the fact that you talked a little bit about like, not all of us have, the tendency to put our handwriting or drawings up on anything. And I think it's really good to get over that. The other thing that I will say is, in another life, I worked in highly logistical event marketing. And I think that could be a really good kind of avenue to focus on, because I mean, we would whiteboard everything out about what the process would be, so everybody could see it, everybody could be on the same page. And that may be a group of people, experiential marketing specifically, of like they're logistics heavy and that everybody needs to be on the same page. And so those are just but I love the idea of like teaching me how to get over my block of like, oh, but it's gonna look ugly if I do it, and like simple ways that I can make it look better. So thanks.
Absolutely. Jolene, everyone has their own ways that they're comfortable using this and ways that they're comfortable getting, putting things out in the world. Eric does a fantastic job of, meeting people where they're at with that. Some people want to go hard into like, teach me all the icons I can learn. And other people are like, I am really happy with boxes and arrows, and that's going to make my day. So, but the visual piece is really like, it's the obvious piece of it, but it's not the most important. The most important is how you're filtering information, how you're getting things out and making sense of things, and how you're using that to communicate with others. And so, it's, once you start downplaying that, you can feel stronger and more capable in the pieces that are going to make a difference in your business and in your work.
The other thing too is part of what Marita said is of bringing visual thinking up the decision-making ladder, is that we often think of visuals as the end of the line, It's what we put into marketing. It's what we put into training, and we put high dollars behind them, and they're high polished. Often visual thinking is better suited in the mess, in the where the, the lines don't, we're just drawing a prototype. We're mocking it up. We're just putting something down so that we can better process it, reorganize it, shift it around.
And that's exactly why my husband told me to do it, is because he's like, as you're adding features or whatever, you want to know what you want it to do and where to go. And it is a process of actually going through that logic, and which I love that you just said that. So yeah.
Awesome.
Great. Thank you for that question, Jolene. Valerie.
You actually answered my question. Because mine's me, I can't draw at all. So what about, no. But so just a couple of other thoughts. One is, you asked us, what content you might do to spread the word. And it seems like your answer to Katie was a really great answer to that question. You're talking about people have a need, and then this solves that problem. And so they're not coming to you and saying, give me drawing thinking skills or visual thinking skills. They're saying, I need to solve these other issues. So it seems like to have your content be about those issues, and then you demonstrate that you're solving them with this tool, seems really great. The other thing I'll say, and I'm sure you already know this, but in your early year here, it sounds like you are doing a lot of this yourself, and then you ask, like, how do we scale? And it seems like training the trainers is the thing, right? I mean, if you guys are giving one-on-one trainings or even one-to-many trainings, at some point you're going to run out of Erics to do that. So, you already know that, but that seems like something to keep in mind, like to look for the people who are having good success with this and bringing them into your world.
Absolutely. Erics are a hot commodity around here.
Yeah. And also, I'll just say I have to leave early today. So thank you. I'm going to duck out pretty soon. So thanks a lot.
Thank you for that feedback, Valerie. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Valerie. Yulia?
So I have two questions. You guys said that the ultimate goal of this visual thinking process is better decisions faster. So I'm curious to know how you actually measure your results to show them to your future potential clients. So how do you actually measure this in order to show it to future potential clients? And then another question is, how are you different than, let's say, a coaching organization or a consultant type of a company that's also focused on improving communication in a company? I don't know. So those are my questions.
Yes. So in terms of measuring, a lot of this, we don't have super easy data to come by. It's not, we don't have the ability yet to say, sales are going to increase X percent because we're doing this. However, when we have been meeting with clients, sometimes we are meeting with clients of our clients. So if we will work with a consultant, and when they are starting an engagement, they'll bring us in to do a facilitated session. And during that session, then our client, the consultant, can kind of assess where things need to go. And the feedback that we get on sessions like that is, whoa, we got everything out in one session that would have taken us 4 otherwise, that would have, made it take a lot longer. And so anecdotally, we do have feedback like this. How we are measuring that is definitely still something to figure out. What we do know is that there is a massive waste in unnecessary meetings, that unproductive meetings. And when people are coming together and they're not able to arrive at that consensus, there is a huge loss for companies in that. And we know that based on the experience that we've had, that this allows for more actionable work, because you kind of get the big picture out there. We often are able to set next steps through this. So we're doing that and moving forward. In terms of how are we different from other consultants and stuff. Sometimes we're not, but sometimes we are able to come in and support those consultants. Like I was just mentioning, this work can be very complementary of a long-term consulting engagement. We also work with an entrepreneurial accelerator where we work at the beginning of an accelerator program. We do our facilitated sessions and then they're able to get support going forward. So there's a lot of different ways that we come in on the facilitation side that can look similar to a change management consultant or a process consultant or something like that. But then the other big difference is how we do the training and the courses that help people develop those skills for themselves.
Love it, love it, love it. Stephanie.
Got it. Thank you.
There's the unmute. I think that answered actually my question, which was from someone who is in marketing, and ironically, before I even got into marketing, I actually was trying to be an animator cartoonist years and years ago. So for me, I've actually incorporated some of this in my wireframing as a developer to actually draw out and explain where does this stuff go, so on and so forth. So my question was exactly is if someone who's already created in the smaller sector versus people who are probably a bigger organization or Zoom, especially now that we're online, is how currently, again, you answered with the accelerator, like approaching basically organizations that would require this in a larger front. I'm curious in the longer term plan, kind of piggybacking off of two things. One being there's currently one Eric, yes. And then also how do you continue to reach out to those type of clients? Because I assume that's probably the best, lack of a better word, bread and butter, because that's the people who are going to be probably like, oh, this is great because we can show this to a mass amount of people, like a webinar or a series where people can watch and learn from a larger front. Maybe even an idea of doing this for a massive webinar with 1,000 viewers, even approaching that market. So I'm curious, what's the current strategy for approaching those types of clientele?
Eric, do you want to address that?
I apologize. I was drawing a little bit and could you ask that last question one more time?
Sure. So my question basically is, summed up is how is currently the approach for trying to attract the type of clientele probably on the corporate level or training level? And has there ever been thoughts as an example, like doing a webinar for a mass amount of people? I'm thinking almost like TED Talk style, kind of doing this, but more of you facilitate that as not only a consultant, but also to offer as an offering. I was just curious, what was the sales strategy?
Yes. In that? So our strategy at the moment to kind of get into the organizations that this might phase first is focus primarily on LinkedIn as the platform for talking about solving business problems, et cetera. With that, part of the reason we went with our leadership, leading with visual thinking as our kind of a flagship training course, is to try and identify the leaders who have the vision and have the roadmap of where they want to go, and making sure that that visual thinking can be beneficial to them first, and then that they want to bring that into their organization so that we can train or offer training or custom training or that sort of thing from top to bottom. So some of that is and some of that feels comfortable from my background as a executive in startups, and one of our organizations was very successful, so being able to kind of relate to that. And then on terms of mass marketing, there's certainly the CEO isn't going to be the one who's doing the visual thinking for everybody else. We want that to be kind of other ways for individuals, leaders, project owners, whoever is in a kind of a influential position or has a team underneath them that they need to communicate to, that they may opt into kind of leveling up their skills to give them an advantage, to give them a different way of bringing value to their team and to their organization. And we definitely want to work our way up to that being a more almost like B2C, right? We're trying to get the individual to make a decision for themselves to build this. So our first course of action is to target leaders so that they have more influence in an organization, that maybe want to bring that and offer that throughout. And then as a byproduct, also speak to those individuals who want to bring this on. And so I don't know if TED Talk, our Midwestern sensibility, says, hey, that's pretty, that's a little, thinking pretty high of ourselves to make a TED Talk. But making this more accessible, more public, more broadcasted is definitely something that isn't happening as much with other organizations that do this. They're not as marketing savvy, I guess. So does that address what you were asking?
I think it does. I think there's a lot of opportunity from my own past experience. I think there's a lot of opportunity of actually selling the whole process in itself as a package, of being part of like an accelerator program, or part of like a specific, I look at stuff that one of the suggestions, or not suggestions, I say what I've seen that is actually a really good benefit, that could be a benefit for this type of service and product, is essentially do your own series, like online, like on YouTube or something related, where you can send out a large video version of it about a topic. That way you can say, I've seen it all the time with YouTubers that will explain something that's very specific, like a movie review, and they'll use cartoon animations, and they'll show different stuff, and they'll show different visual aspects of it. I mean, I would take that embodiment of that entertainment culture, take that and apply it to the business sector, take this and apply it, saying this is how you can elicit not only internal questions and internal visual thinking, but also to potentially organize your prospects' visual thinking, like how do they visualize your product or your sales process, or how to interact with your organization. I mean, this has a lot of different merits that could apply, just the fact because it is visual. And I think that there's a lot of opportunity in a number of different places. My example was just having it, again, as a massive scale, to then have those places go, you know what? I think that's actually great if we bring that in. And of course, going at, in some way, I would consider it very niche to go after, again, an executive who's going to be able to say, here's all the leaders. That's very hard to get to those people in marketing in general, especially B2B. So there might be an idea of again, kind of that B2C approach, in the way that, hey, we're doing this, you love this, wouldn't you like to apply this to your organization? So I'd be curious to see more, but that's the end of my question.
Thank you for that.
Thank you.
I really appreciate it.
Super, super helpful. Lisa.
Good morning.
Hey.
I love this. I absolutely love this. I'm a fashion designer. I'm a wardrobe consultant, and I'm a solo entrepreneur, and I'm a very visual person, but I don't have time to map things out. And I have so much going on. I'm launching 2 businesses, and, with the business plans and marketing plans, and it's like, I got to get it out of my head and onto paper, but I love this method, but I don't want to do it myself. So, it seems like most of the conversation is around larger companies and corporations. But just saying that as a solo entrepreneur, I think it's really cool, and it would be really helpful for me.
I love that feedback. We have actually ended up doing a lot of our initial sessions. We've actually been testing this out for more than 2 years, but we've been active as a launched business for about a year. And the majority of our sessions have actually been with individual entrepreneurs in one way or another. And if we can figure out how to monetize that and make that a scalable business, we would probably go more that direction. But some of that is trying to figure out how we can bring more folks in and stuff. But it really resonates, especially like we often talk about how entrepreneurs are in the swirl. You have so much going on in your head. And then the other component of it is having that sounding board, that person that's hearing it and helping to filter it. And you can see what you're saying and how that is resonating in a couple different ways. So I love that it resonates with you.
Thank you. Cool.
Yeah. And way to go on 2 businesses.
Yeah, I can agree with that too, Lisa. And for me, just having it all in one spot would be great, because like right now I have like tons of papers. Like it's very messy, even like Word documents. So having a centralized place like Relumed, I think would be very beneficial for us solopreneurs. Jay.
Well, I'm definitely a tactile learner, and so this resonates with me for that reason. And I feel like pre-pandemic, I carried around little notebooks, and now I'm doing a lot of that work in Trello, and I'm thinking about that maybe I'm missing out on some of my learning opportunities. Maybe that stuff isn't sticking as well. But what I wanted to share is, and I'm curious about your feedback on this too. In that kind of, you were asking about like, what could be, how could we sort of like share the word about this? What are some things? I'm wondering, we've been hiring a graphic recorder to come to our business resource open house events. And of course, like she's getting all the value because she's the one who's doing it, but it is happening in real time, just like what we're watching happen here. And because we have her on camera and we're sort of promoting that as another way, so we have a captioner, we have 6 different interpreters in 6 different languages, and we're capturing each of those language channels, and then we have the graphic recording. So we're able to then share out this afterwards. But I'm wondering about your thoughts there of this like graphic recording as a way to normalize this kind of activity.
Absolutely. Yeah. So graphic recording is a part of visual thinking. It is, when Marita showed the vast framework that we have that has a path for visual skills, a path for frameworks and kind of how you filter or what to draw when, the sharing and being able to kind of work with others. And graphic recording is probably the place people see visual thinking the most, outside of somebody just jumping on a whiteboard and scratching out something. But it's a very performative and it's a very kind of polished end of the line part of that service. It's fantastic that you're using that as one of the ways to kind of communicate or reinforce kind of the event and the experience that you have. So that's amazing. And so what we do try and do is say it's that in some ways, but it's, instead of using it again at the end of the line or end of the conversation when you're kind of you've got everything polished and ready to share, it's in how do you use that to better understand in a feedback session around you've launched the next version of your software. Now you need to get feedback. You need to get your team together and say, hey, what do we do right? What do we do wrong? And how do we capture that in a better way to kind of get everybody on the same page so they can see what each other means in a more clear and shared way? Or how does that CEO who's trying to start up another business unit use that visual thinking to think through all of the possibilities or see what opportunities are there, and make in that way kind of see more of what's going on. So it's kind of, it's certainly that recording part is definitely a piece of visual thinking. And so, yeah, how do we appreciate the perspectives? How do we connect people who know that to doing that in the office, doing that in a meeting, doing that on a daily basis?
One thing that Eric didn't mention there is that one of the companies that he co-founded is called TrueScribe, and it's a whiteboard video production company. And they also offer graphic recording services. So all of the final end of the line products, like the graphic recording, is kind of housed in that other company that we offer. So our services are a little bit up that chain. So yes, it's a fantastic additional tool and additional way to do it, and a great way to be partnering with our other companies.
I wonder, in your feedback, I wonder if, because what we're trying to capture is something that happened as a community, if maybe, I love that reflection piece, because yes, it's useful. Like, I use it in marketing and other things like, hey, this happened, that kind of thing. But I wonder if more, because it is an ongoing event that happens, ideally quarterly, if there's a reflection on that image and even one's input into that piece. Like that was that little drawing was what I said, that part of things could be helpful. I don't know.
Love that. Yeah, and that's such a good way for people to stay connected with it. And absolutely, fantastic connection there.
Hop in, Jolene. Tell us what you saw, what you just heard.
Well, no, so I actually have like three. So one, actually, exactly what Jay just said. I love the idea of like documenting, like, you heard me, because so often like that's all we want is to be heard, especially if we're going to speak up in meetings and like put our necks out on the line, like that somehow like I was listened to. But two, I was thinking about this. So way back in my early days, I worked at Segway, and the engineering department, they did this all the time. You know, they're on whiteboards constantly. They had the whiteboard, like the old school whiteboards that you could like print out afterwards, you know, and they really got this. But the marketing department that I was in, we didn't do this, but I wanted to be like the engineers that did this, because I felt it. And I'm wondering if there is some organizations that would be good to go after, because part of their organization already does this. It's already ingrained, and that you can teach other departments because they've already been exposed to this. They already know that their colleagues see value in documenting it like that. And that was the other thing. And then the last thing I would say is, one of the things that I'm dealing with right now is Disney just created this massive confusion for how to select attractions. And now you have to buy some of them, and then you have to buy other ones a different way. And it's super confusing. And this sort of idea for my clients, like, I'm like, oh, I need to do this to say, okay, if you're here, you're going to go do this. If you're here, you're going to go do this, and take them through that really confusing process. And I'm actually thinking about it, not internally, but something that I can make a YouTube to actually share to a consumer. And that's another maybe idea of another kind of channel to go down, of a corporation that knows they have a confusing something that they need to explain. So that's, yeah, it.
Absolutely. I want to go back real quick to the, like the marketing department doesn't do this, but the engineering department does. That, like, when that is a fantastic example. And when you're trying to build it, like get it across more of the organization, then there's probably already some visual language that's happening in the engineering department that the marketing department should learn and should take on. Probably not all of it. There's certainly differences, but if there's ways that you can align and bridge some of that gap, you can better talk about what's happening over here, or find amazing things that you weren't expecting if you've got some of that visual language.
100%.
Yeah.
Awesome. Zaki, do you want to get the last question in before breakout rooms?
Sure. So I have a few, but one of the things that I think might be a barrier, and maybe you know better than this, but let's say I'm working on a personal scribble and something, and I really think it tells the story. Can I then share that with the people that I work with, or is there too much lost in terms of the context because they weren't there during the discussion? There wasn't a give and take. Or do I just go back and then use that as a template? But if I do that, do I lose their input? How do you handle this idea that I've created a good, a good vision, but I don't know how to share it?
That's a fantastic question, and I think there's three parts of using visual thinking and skills to or skills that work underneath those. Marita mentioned those, and the first one is capture. And when we talk about like graphic recording, we talk about what we're doing here. It's a lot of just making sure we get things and we hold them down, and that they that we again capture them when we consume them, et cetera. There's processing. So how do we think about something? How do we chew on an idea? How do we draw out a map of a process, and then we're like, no, it goes this way, and then we shift it around and change it. And then there's communication. And the truth is that the map that we draw here, right, isn't necessarily like you hit the nail on the head. Everybody here watching this has an experience with this, and if we were to take this and just put it out into the world without context, the next person's not going to get as much out of this as everybody here will. So there's a bit of a fingerprint aspect to some of this. But then it's learning how to communicate and turn, using visual thinking, not just to mind map, but then how do I tell a story? How can I maybe storyboard this out? How do I draw a kind of a series? How do I draw it with somebody so that they can see the progression of the idea instead of, trying to process the whole thing at once? So we do also in our visual thinking, train people to present ideas with visual thinking. And that might be, again, you going to a whiteboard with one other person and walking them through that, like the engineers at Segway would have, right? Or it could be taking that and working with a designer or somebody else to create an infographic or to create a whiteboard video, or use it as the predecessor, the prototype into other mediums that then can maybe do a better job of being succinct or being laser focused on something like that.
Very cool. Very cool. Thank you.
Amazing. And then Eric, if you could stop sharing.
Absolutely.
Thank you. That was really good. Lots of really, really good questions. I hope those were helpful for you guys.
Yes, thank you all so much for that feedback and those questions. We love the energy and just love seeing where everyone's minds go with this. Thank you.
One second, I don't see the right. I have too many windows open. There we go. Awesome. And then we just like to ask all of our presenters, you had your asks in your presentation, but if there's one way that the 1 Million Cups community can support you.
We offer free roundtable conversations around visual thinking every month. So we want more people to join us and keep this conversation going. So if you're interested, please visit our website and sign up on the events page for our next or one of our upcoming roundtable conversations.
Nice. Is that once a month, you said? Or
yep.
Cool.
Yep.
Cool. Well, that again, Marita and Eric, that was amazing. I loved seeing the visual and seeing it in action. That was great. So thank you guys for presenting. And then for the rest of the community, if you are new in your business or doing having a new transition, we would love to hear about it. We would love for you to present. You just have to be willing to ask for help and learn by doing. And again, we're always looking for more community organizers. This is a event that's for the community, ran by the community. So we could always use help. All you have to do is email us, Seattle@1millioncups.com, or just reach out to one of the organizers here. And then again, our link tree, I would just go ahead and bookmark this. Again, it has all of our links for the 1MC Seattle. And next week, I think Valerie had to leave early, but we get to hear from Valerie Mosley. Super excited for her presentation as well. And that's so next week at 9 a.m. on Wednesday. And so we're going to end with a little more conversation and coffee, just in smaller groups. You have a free pass to leave whenever you want. We typically keep the breakout rooms open, I think until 10:15, but we won't kick you out if you stay longer. And then I think Zeki already has those set up.
I do. So we are ready to transition over to the breakout rooms. Thank you all for coming today. Great questions and a really cool visual, different type of presentation and topic for us. So minds expanded, a little bit blown in a good way. So thanks for Madison, Wisconsin, right? Woo-hoo. And we're off to our breakout rooms. Have a great day.